A massive federal raid on an Austin mayor's ranch uncovered a hidden bunker, rescued 134 victims, and exposed a 7-point...
The ranch sat 17 miles outside Austin, off a county road that bent twice before it forgot where it was going. At 4 in the morning, the gate was closed. The porch light was on, and the cattle had not moved in 2 hours. A single security camera above the barn rotated on its usual arc, west to east, east to west, exactly as it had for the past 6 years. Everything looked the way the satellite photos said it should look. The porch light had been on for 11 nights in a row. It had never been on for more than 3 before. Her name was Renata, and she had been a livestock inspector with the Texas Animal Health Commission for 14 months. She was driving the FM road that morning because a neighboring property had reported a sick calf, and the on-call rotation had landed on her. She slowed at the ranch's south fence because something on the ground caught her headlights, a length of black conduit, the kind used to bury fiber optic cable, exposed where the soil had washed out after the last storm. It ran perpendicular to the fence line and disappeared into a culvert that, according to the county utility map clipped to her dashboard, did not exist. She took a photograph on her personal phone. She did not file a report. She mentioned it 3 days later to a friend whose brother worked in the San Antonio field office, and only because the conversation drifted there over coffee. Renata did not know it yet, but she had just become the first person outside the system to see it. The case was opened by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, in coordination with the Drug Enforcement Administration, under joint file designation FBI 4419-RM, with concurrent jurisdiction granted to the Western District of Texas. The target was listed as a sitting municipal official, the elected mayor of the city of Austin, and a portfolio of 7 LLCs registered to a single agricultural address in Travis County. The lead agency was the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. DEA involvement was logged as advisory and supplemental, attached to a parallel narcotics inquiry already 3 years deep. On paper, it was a routine financial disclosure review. On paper. The first thing that didn't add up was the water bill. The ranch's metered consumption averaged just under 41,000 gallons per month, which was consistent with a working cattle operation. But the electrical draw from the main transformer averaged 312 kilowatt-hours per day, roughly 4 times what the listed structures could account for. The second thing was a signature. 3 quarterly compliance filings for one of the LLCs had been countersigned by a notary whose commission had expired in 2019, and who, according to the Texas Secretary of State, had passed away in early 2021. The third thing was a shipping invoice for industrial-grade ventilation equipment. 8 units, commercial duty, capable of cycling air for an enclosed space of roughly 9,000 square feet. The invoice was dated June 14th. The equipment had been delivered May 30th. 3 small things. Each one on its own could be explained. Together, they could not. If you're still here, stay with me. This next part is where investigators stopped sleeping. And if you want more stories the headlines walked past, tap subscribe. Quietly, the way this whole case started. The forensic accounting team was assigned on the 2nd week of August. Their first request was not for bank records. It was for the property's construction permits going back 22 years. What they found was a permit issued in 2014 for a subsurface agricultural storage facility of approximately 1,200 square feet. A root cellar, essentially, common enough in the hill country. What they also found, buried in a 2017 amendment filed by a contractor who had since dissolved his business, was a revised footprint listing the same structure at 8,940 square feet across 2 levels. The amendment had been approved by a single county clerk on a Friday afternoon in November. No inspection had ever been performed. On September 3rd, agents pulled the wire transfer history for the primary holding LLC and found 1,847 individual deposits between $9,400 and $9,800, each one engineered to fall just below the federal currency reporting threshold, moving through 4 correspondent banks across a period of 31 months. Total volume on those deposits alone, $16.2 million. By the 3rd week of September, the financial picture had grown to include 11 shell entities, 2 of them registered in Wyoming, 1 in Delaware, and the rest layered through Texas LLCs, whose registered agents shared the same strip mall address in Round Rock. The aggregate movement, once mapped, came to $7.5 billion across 41 months. There was a sticky note recovered later from the desk of one of the case agents, found pressed inside the back cover of a binder. It read, in red felt pen, "Not laundering. Plumbing." By the time the warrant was served, agents already knew what they would find. The interesting part was what they didn't expect to find next to it. The raid was executed at 4:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in October, but the operational record reads less like a breach and more like an inventory. 16 agents on the perimeter. 4 at the main residence. A 6-person tactical element at the barn. The gate was opened with a code obtained from a cooperating witness. No shots were fired. The mayor was not on the property. The ranch foreman, when shown the warrant, asked only whether he could feed the horses first. He was permitted to. The entry into the subsurface structure was made through a hydraulic hatch concealed beneath the floor of a tack room, a hatch that operated on a biometric reader keyed to 4 individuals, none of whom were the property's listed owner. Inside, agents documented a corridor system extending 240 feet east-northeast under the pasture, terminating in a series of partitioned rooms with independent ventilation, plumbing, and a secondary egress that opened, eventually, into the culvert Renata had photographed in August. The named target, the mayor, was the signature. The architecture had a different author. Her name appeared in the seized correspondence under the handle the registrar. Her real name, when the federal indictment was unsealed, was a former assistant general counsel for a regional healthcare compliance firm, age 58, who had taken early retirement in 2016 and was, according to her tax filings, working part-time as a bookkeeper for a small accounting practice in Georgetown. She had no criminal record. She had voted in every municipal election since 1987. Her LinkedIn profile listed 3 skills: contract review, regulatory filings, and Spanish. One message recovered from an encrypted signal thread, sent 11 months before the raid, read, "The paperwork doesn't need to be invisible. It needs to be uninteresting." Uninteresting is the same as invisible to anyone whose job is to look at 1,000 of them. Take a breath here. I had to, the first time I read the file, because the next page is where this stops being a fraud case and starts being something the public was never supposed to see. The first wave of public disclosure came in the form of a joint press release issued from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Texas, dated 3 days after the raid. It listed the recovery of $7.5 billion in commingled assets, the rescue of 134 individuals from the subsurface facility, 89 adults and 45 minors, the majority from 3 countries in Central America, and the indictment of 14 named defendants on charges ranging from human trafficking and money laundering to wire fraud and conspiracy against rights. The mayor was named in Count 1. The bookkeeper was named in Count 7. Press conferences were held. Statements were issued. A nonprofit was given a federal grant to assist with victim resettlement. The county commissioner who had approved the 2017 permit amendment resigned, citing personal reasons, and was not charged. The case appeared, to the casual reader, to be closed. That was the version released to the press. The version inside the file was 42 pages longer. The 42 pages described a template. The subsurface structure on the ranch was not a one-off. Investigators, cross-referencing the construction contractor's other client list, identified 4 additional properties, 1 in southern New Mexico, 1 in eastern Oklahoma, 2 in central Florida, that had been issued nearly identical permit amendments between 2015 and 2019, each one approved by a single clerk, each one followed within 90 days by the establishment of a holding LLC, each one drawing electrical loads inconsistent with their declared use. The pattern had a name in the seized communications. It was referred to as the Orchard. Each property was a tree. The ranch in Travis County was one branch. And inside the federal regulatory body charged with auditing cross-border financial movements above the reporting threshold, a senior compliance review officer with a GS-15 designation and 17 years of service had, between 2017 and the date of the raid, closed 43 suspicious activity reports without referral. 29 of those reports referenced entities later identified as part of the Orchard. He had received commendations in 3 consecutive performance reviews. He had been promoted in 2022. This was not a failure of the system. The system performed exactly as it had been quietly reconfigured to perform. There is a woman in McAllen who has not spoken publicly. Her daughter was 19 when she left for what she had been told was a hotel job in Austin. Her daughter had been listed as a missing person for 2 years and 4 months at the time of the raid. Her daughter was not among the 134. The mother keeps her daughter's last voicemail on a phone she no longer uses for anything else. The voicemail is 41 seconds long. She charges the phone every Sunday. What the file still does not say is who designed the orchard. The bookkeeper administered it. The mayor lent it cover. The clerk signed the permits. The compliance officer cleared the reports. But the architecture, the choice of jurisdictions, the spacing of the properties, the precise calibration of deposit amounts to fall beneath thresholds in 3 different regulatory regimes predates the involvement of any of the 14 named defendants. The earliest planning document recovered, a single PDF with its metadata stripped, is dated 2011. None of the indicted individuals were operating in their current capacities in 2011. The file does not say who wrote it. The file does not say whether the 4 identified properties are the only 4. The file does not say how many suspicious activity reports were closed without referral by officers other than the one named. Investigators have, in internal memoranda, used the word fragment. They have used it more than once. If this story stayed with you, comment "filed" below. It tells me you want the ones the headlines skipped. Subscribe if you want to be here when the next file opens. There's no shouting on this channel, just the parts that were left out. The next file begins in a county clerk's office in eastern Oklahoma, where a permit was amended on a Friday afternoon in 2018, and the inspector assigned to verify it retired the following week. The next file is already open,